Hello, this is Kris Nelson from evolvedconsciousness.org. Today I'll be reading a short post called Senses for Input of Reality, Not Technology, and this was part of my work on language and reality and the trivium method. I had made this post before that 5-part series to explain how senses are input. Senses are the main input for understanding reality, and we should rely on those rather than on the technology that provides us with deeper understanding of things that aren't directly related to our direct living and macro reality, such as when people get lost in misinterpreting technological data such as the double slit experiment and other things. They get out of reality because they're not using their senses for input of reality. So this was published on the 11th of December 2014. The infographic is correspondence of info. So we have our awareness, and then we have our awareness of data, info, and reality. Those are the arrows going from our awareness of self. And then we have the data points, the spheres. That's data, info, knowledge, and reality. These are isolated packets that lack correspondence and limited in scope of applicability. That is, until we correspond them, and with correspondence there is more definition, detail, clarity, more understanding that results, and there's less limitation from this greater correspondence and understanding. This is why some people make erroneous conclusions. They have limited conceptions that limit their understanding of possibilities. They don't understand reality as fully as they can. So not only when you have limited data set are you going to have a limited awareness of reality, but when you're not able to correspond things within each other and correlate them into a coherent understanding, then you'll have less aspects of the big picture, the great web, the big pattern, the great pattern, whatever you want to call it, of understanding reality will be less coherently formed, and you'll have pieces missing. But when you create connections between data points and reality, you're able to develop a more in-depth and complete understanding of that bigger picture. So I'll read the article now. Taking in something with the 5 senses induces aspects of reality. If you can't trust your 5 senses, then you can't trust anything. The 5 senses must be trusted and used more exhaustively to provide more data points of input to discern more accurately, not abandoned as unreliable. We need more data points to create more correspondences, more knowledge about reality to connect things together. The only way to prove something exists 100% is to point at it as ostensive proof. So I just want to mention that this is the way it works, and people have previously agreed with me on this article and how things work with our senses, and to point at it as 100% proof. But then they want to claim to me that they have 100% certainty and they know something even though it's speculative and conceptual. So please learn to discern objective verifiables that can ostensibly be proven because they're actually in reality, and speculative beliefs and conceptions that may or may not be true and are simply possibilities. There's a big difference, and a delineation between reality and speculation needs to be made, between what can be proven and what is merely speculative belief and cannot be proven. Since you can't point to it in reality as an ostensive proof. It is right there in our vision for us to see plainly. Some things may be optical illusions, but they are created from existing aspects of reality that deceive and appear as something else due to limited perspective, which limits the data set. You point to something red to demonstrate the existence of red, and there it is. You can point to the red, and that is the proof that red is there. You do not need to know that it operates from, I don't remember, but 400 to 700 nanometers wavelength. I forget if that's what it is. But you do not need to know that. You do not need to know it in a scientifically measurable way. All you need is your 5 senses to see that something is there, and you can point to it. I'm not talking about an optical illusion that's playing tricks on your on the visual capacities of your sensory objects, your eyes, in order for you to see with your consciousness, with your mind, which is really doing the seeing. Your eyes are only a technological device. All the senses are body technology that are built in for us to use. We do not need to use mechanical technology to make sense of basic aspects of reality. So we can't describe the color red other than in a relative description with other correlated aspects of reality. That is to say, it's a primary color that is not blue or yellow, and hence it is red. So we can identify labels to things, but once we understand how the color spectrum works in some way, and the corresponding colors, you say, okay, well, you mix blue and red and you get purple, you mix blue and yellow and you get green, you mix yellow and red and you get orange. So they're all in relation to each other. You couldn't have red as the only color. Then it wouldn't be the color spectrum. We started with general colors and deduced down to red. Orange can also be deduced from red. We could also describe red in terms no one will understand as, oh, here we go. So as the 620 to 740 nanometer frequency range of light. And this is pretty useless in a way to describe it, although it is scientifically measurable. There's a difference between ostensive proof and scientifically measurable proof through technology. Now, which one is more valuable? Using the faculties, the organic, technological faculties of our body, or technological mechanical faculties? Which one is more relevant and which one is more useful? I submit that our 5 senses are the most useful one in order to make sense of reality, and they are at the basic level of making sense of reality, even when we have technological, mechanical stimulus input about reality that we cannot detect with our normal sensory inputs of our body vehicle. Rather than using another technological vehicle, another technological apparatus, will recognize that you have certain capacities in your body that can make sense of reality, and you need to use those first and learn how to use them first. To understand the aspects of reality that really matter, which is morality, the wisdom of right action, etc., you don't need to know anything about quantum physics or any other branch of knowledge brought about through technological means. All you need are your senses to understand the reality we live in. Quantum physics isn't important in terms of creating true freedom and peace, order, goodness, etc. Morality is important. Senses show a specific reality of a specific frequency of perception in this reality for a reason. This is what we need. This is what we depend upon to interface with reality. That's what we rely upon. That's what we need to interface with reality. That's the prime dependence. We don't need technological devices to interface and survive and progress and develop a moral way of living to create true freedom and peace. All the technology is a bonus, but also a distraction. How far has man progressed morally with all the technology? Not very far. Technology has no direct corollary to morality in a positive or negative sense, but tends towards the negative when morality and reality is not understood properly. If we learn foundational principles of truth first, then technology can help us facilitate moral living in greater degrees of actuality. Senses are what we have. They are the given innate tools, and they do great. Knowledge of how senses work and processing of sensory inputs allows people to manipulate us. So, if you don't know how you work and other people know, that creates a power differential. They know how your senses work, they know how your psychology works, they know how your consciousness works, and they can manipulate your understanding of reality. And language is a huge part of that. And when people speak, when words go into your mind, when symbols are visually seen, when the frequencies of words affect you, when they are input into you, they affect you and have an influence upon you, whether you recognize it or not. That is simply how life works, with evil being generated by causal agents. Because knowledge of how senses work and our processing of sensory input allows people to manipulate us. Probe deeper and you will find more knowledge and uncover more that the senses cannot see upon a first impression. More data is required. This is how we get to universal general concepts from the particular individual objects we see in reality. The universals manifest through the particulars. Senses give us the information of what is around us, but the interpretation is what deceives us. So we have our senses and then we interpret them. So if we don't interpret the senses correctly, then we will create a false understanding of reality. All because our ability of consciousness to understand our senses is not fully developed, and we may also have poisoned and erroneous worldviews and concepts and beliefs that affect our ability to honestly perceive reality as it is in an objective sense. Infrared light, dog whistles, higher and lower frequencies of sound and light that exist, that we can detect with technological instruments but not with our designed human eye or ear, because we are designed for specific frequency reception. Those other aspects of reality are not required for our immediate evolution in consciousness towards morality and living without creating evil. Knowing that matter is solid is good enough. You don't need to know about the underlying energy field in order to live morally. All secondary detection of reality through technology is also secondary in importance to understand what matters most in reality. We were given the tools we need to discern reality correctly and navigate it to create true freedom and peace. People want to apply technology to detect plants' senses in some ways. Plants are not animals. Get over it. All you need is eyes. Technology is blinding you to reality. The technology is telling you, oh, they have this and this senses, and they can detect a chemical here, and that means they can hear. You don't even understand how to process information in reality. Even you scientists. Everyone is believing whatever they want to believe because they have preconceptions such as pseudo-spiritual bullshit, and then they take this data and then they interpret it in terms of their preconceptions and prejudices, in terms of their false beliefs of what they want and desire and wish to be true, because it's not objectively verifiable. And then they say, oh, plants feel, they're just like animals. Bullshit. All you need is eyes. Technology is blinding you to reality. That's where you have, oh, everything is energy, quantum, so everything is the same at the fundamental level. There are no morals now. Woohoo! Wake up. Wake up. Technology can help to facilitate learning by providing mechanisms for doing so, such as computers and the internet, as well as mechanisms that can reduce the labor required to sustain basic survival, which would allow for the pursuits of truth and maintain morality. If you want to create more and more, then use technology for that. But first, start with the senses, then improve upon them with tech as needed. Always remember the basic detectors we are born with. Our senses. That's the first level of fundamental understanding of reality, is through our senses. All other technological devices can be used to facilitate a deeper understanding, but they will never reject and contradict the basic foundational understanding of reality provided through our senses, which is something people have a hard time understanding. It's very important to understand. The primary objective understanding of reality is achieved through the senses. People get lost because they believe things that are not based in objective reality, in ostensive things they can point at and recognize. Because when you induce universal and general concepts, you can get very lost in pure speculative beliefs. And then you're going to create that into a reality when it's not a provable reality. So you need to use your senses and keep verifying through induction and further through deduction back down to reality, to the ostensive and objective reality that can verify your universal or general concept. Some people let technological data override objective reality. It is all done through belief. People read what others say and believe it. It doesn't have to be true. There are experiments with technology, and then there are interpretations of the data. Anyone can provide an interpretation, tell others this is the way it is, and then people will believe them. People are fooled all the time. No thinking properly for themselves, not digging deep enough into data and info of objective reality. They prefer to create unreality in their minds and believe it as true, because it sounds good or feels good to them. It resonates as true. So it, quote, sounds good, it, quote, feels good, it, quote, resonates. So there is the aspect of saliency of information and how we weigh it and judge it and give it value. But that's a different thing than how it makes you feel and how it resonates with your other conceptions and what you already believe, and how that's going to affect what you accept as reality. People get lost in the land of bullshit interpretations and take them as, quote, facts of reality. They have not even developed a grounded understanding of reality and simply fall for manipulations, either intentional or mistaken deceptions on the parts of those delivering these messages. Step away from the fantasy and wonder and get grounded in the firm, solid foundational truth of reality we can come to know with greater attention to ourselves and reality. So step away from beliefs. Step away from needing the beliefs to be true. Step away from the fantasy and wonder. Get back to grounded reality. This is important. Most people just believe whatever they want. It's very hard to let go of our attachment to certain beliefs that provide us with an answer, that without the answer we'd be left free-floating and falling in a void, because the answer fills a hole of uncertainty and insecurity and doubt and then the fear of the unknown. So to take that away is psychologically can be very detrimental to our ability to cope with ourselves and reality. It provides, the belief can provide a model or framework that allows us to make more sense of ourselves, although from an unrealistic and an imaginary perspective. That's why we speculate and create these inductive conceptions and universals and general concepts. But they're not always true. They're possibilities, but unless you can prove it in objective reality, especially through ostensive pointing at it, then you need more work in order to prove it. And it's not a proof, it's not 100% certain, and it's not something that exists. It's a speculative belief that points to a possibility because you imagined that possibility. It doesn't make it true. People are getting lost in the minutiae of technological detail and information overload. They do not have firm grounding in the reality we live in without the use of technology to do the thinking and detecting for them. People are not using their minds, so they're not evolving consciousness. They're using technology to think for them and provide them with the answers rather than get the answers for themselves. That's a detrimental aspect of the technological revolution, especially with the internet. Many people are not thinking for themselves. So evolve consciousness. Plants are, quote, conscious now, just like animals, at least for the confused people out there who cannot discern reality correctly, even though our objective sensory detectors can show how ostensibly false that claim is. That plants are conscious and they're like animals. Wake up, people. Learn to use the tools you were born with. Stop relying on technology so much. It is making you stupid, idiotic, moronic, unthinking, and foolish. That's the end of the article. Thank you again for listening. Thank you for your time and attention. Have a nice day. Take care. Peace.